7 hours of trust building are required to turn a cold prospect into a warm lead who loves to do business with you. Somebody who thinks you're the right person, I can trust this person, and I want to do business with this person. So how do we engineer these 7 hours of trust? Oftentimes, sellers, especially inbound sellers, they think after the first 20 to 30 minutes, yeah, I've done my job. I've pitched the prospect what we are offering, or I've asked the discovery questions, and now either the prospect will come back and sign, or there wasn't a fit. The lead was bad, I would say. If the prospect doesn't come again, probably the lead was bad. But real outbound sellers, they just start with the first meeting. This is the start. They know this is minute 20 or 30 or 420 minutes of trust building. So you can really engineer the trust during these 6 hours or 7 hours. And this goes step by step. So let's break it down. If we have like 7 touches or 7 hours, at the beginning you start a conversation. For example, with a cold mail, with a cold call. Then you show relevance. You ask relevant questions. You show relevant case studies. You follow up. Oftentimes there isn't a direct decision of your prospect. They have to think about, they have to talk about this problem or the solution with different stakeholders within their company. So you have to follow up. Then you can increase trust by sending relevant case studies, by maybe sharing SOPs that could also already deliver some of the value that you will later on provide in your service. Just share relevant information, relevant context. Moreover, don't get emotional. If somebody is not replying, stay consistent. Oftentimes it has nothing to do with you. They are busy, they have lots of things to do, especially C-level decision makers. They are not always available, but it has nothing to do with you personally or with your offer. Probably your offer is relevant to them, is solving a pain point. They like your solution, they like you, but they just didn't have the time. So stay consistent. This is also part of the 7-hour trust building process to show that they can rely on you. Then after 6 to 7 hours, you're able to close this client. This client is now trusting you and wants to do business with you. So when it comes to outbound, stop thinking in first meeting and start thinking in 7-hour relationships. Use your CRM to track whether you're building trust by sharing case studies, references, testimonials, and so on. If it comes to a plant, you would also not grow a tree by shouting at the seed. You have to water it, step by step. So let's look at the examples that we have in our course that show you exactly what to do in these 7 hours. First of all, you start the conversation, probably via cold mail, LinkedIn DM or cold call. So if you start, for example, via LinkedIn DM or cold mail, you just ask a short question, an either or question, maybe a very direct question. You can also share some relevant SOPs, but just something to get the conversation started. There are also lots of examples later on in the course that show you how you can start these kind of conversations and which messages are performing best for your industry. The goal in this case is just to start the conversation. So don't think about pitching your offer already. Don't think about selling or closing a deal. Just think what could be a relevant start for this conversation. What we are often doing is to ask an easy to answer either or question. So for example, are your clients mainly from the enterprise segment or from small and medium sized industries? So this is a good opener, but you can also change it via AI so that you ask this either or question very specifically for every prospect that you're writing an email to. We will show you later how to use AI to write these relevant either or openers or other complements whatsoever that you can write via AI. Then you will get a reply. And after this reply, then you can pitch them, then you can show relevance. And there, for example, what you can do is you can say, hey, we worked with a customer who's very similar to you. You can share references, you can share Loom videos, you can also share case studies where you show concretely which pains another customer had who's similar to your prospect and how you solved this problem. By doing that, you're adding a lot of trust and the person doesn't even have to know you and can see, oh nice, there is a proof that this person can deliver, can solve my problem, understands my problems, and has the right solution. You can do all of this via email, but you can also do it via phone. It's just important that you're following up. If you see that they are not replying, you can, of course, write them again. For example, if they are posting something, or you can share another relevant lead magnet so that you continue the conversation by adding further value. You can do this manually, but also automate it via Smartlead, Lemlist, or other tools. Something that worked out very well for us is to combine cold mails with LinkedIn content. So our clients or our prospects, they not only receive an email, they also see, hey, Daniel is posting day by day relevant information about outbound, cold mails, cold calling. So by just following me, they will receive relevant content and I don't have to send it to them personally. I'm basically following up with hundreds and thousands of people at the same time, and this also adds trust. This also increases the likelihood that people are willing to book a meeting with you. As you can see here, I generated more than 1.9 million impressions via LinkedIn. Some videos even received more than 400,000 impressions, and this all adds up to the 7 hours of trust building. Because people who are watching the videos, they of course are spending time with me and the topic and the problem that they might have and the solution. So using content to fuel your outbound is a very good strategy. Next to your general content, you should also post very specific content, very specific case studies, testimonials, and references that show you have proven your solution. You have proven that you can deliver. And in this case, I would also recommend you to highlight these case studies or references in your profile so that everybody can see this is the person who understands the market, who understands the problem, and can solve my problem. Let's have a look how it looks on my profile. If you go here, you can see we have the focus section where I'm posting all the case studies, but also if you continue to scroll in this section, you will see even more results that we generated with clients. Or if I have been invited as a speaker, you can see it here, case studies, boot camps. This all adds trust and increases the likelihood that your prospects will book a meeting with. If your prospect is still not answering, just follow up with more content. It can also be funny, just something that adds value. Value can come in different forms. It can be humor, you can invite them to an event, you can give them a ticket to a conference that you're also going, or to a football event, whatsoever, what you think your prospect would like. In my case, for example, I like to share lead lists because I know my clients, they really need these lead lists and oftentimes they don't have good access. So I can provide them some value by sharing a little lead list. And if they want to have the full lead list or if they want to have a full campaign, they of course know who to work with. Oftentimes when you're sharing great value to potential clients, it's not even required that you ask them for a meeting. They will ask you whether you have time for a lunch, meeting, or whatever, because they see, hey, this guy, finally, he brought some value to the table before asking something. So he gave, and then he maybe asked. But oftentimes, before you even ask, they will tell you, hey, let's meet, because they know, hey, this is a problem that I'm currently facing. This guy seems to know what he's doing, so let's have a meeting. Finally, you have the meeting and your prospect is willing to talk to you about his problem. So what you should do now is shut up. Please only ask questions. Please don't pitch your whole product yet. Shut up, listen, and let the prospect talk 70 to 90% of the time. Ideally, aim for 90% because you will talk anyways way too much. So ask questions. There's a book which is called Spin Selling. There are, of course, lots of other books, but spin is very easy. Situation, problem, impact, need, payoff. So you start with questions about the situation and then you follow with questions about the problem and the impact which this problem might have. Then after you have realized these are the relevant pain points, this is exactly the pain point that this prospect has, then you can start sharing insights about other projects that you had, where you can say, hey, this client, for example, had a similar problem, we solved it this way, and this will build up and add further trust. In the beginning, oftentimes it makes sense to break your sales cycle at this point. So you just have a discovery call and then you have a 30-minute or 1 hour closing call. Because in the beginning, you will oftentimes be too nervous to discover and to close in the same meeting. So just set up a 30-minute discovery call where you get a really good understanding of the persona, of the pain points, and then follow up with a 30 to 1 hour closing meeting. What I suggest in this case is to just ask at the end of the discovery meeting, hey, basically this sounds like a problem we are seeing a lot of times for our clients. If you want, we can do a short ROI calculation in the next meeting where we calculate what should be the return to justify an investment to solve this problem. Would you be open for that? And then almost 100% of your clients will say yes to this ROI meeting because it's even more value for them. They will need to do this ROI calculation anyways. Oftentimes they didn't have the time, so why not do it together with you? So after the discovery call, follow up with a short email that summarizes the problems that your prospect has just mentioned. Confirm that there will be this ROI calculation meeting, and then in the ROI calculation meeting, you can sum up the problems that the prospect has told you last time. You can show exactly what your solution would look like, and then you can do the ROI calculation so that it also makes sense from a logical perspective to say yes to your offer. If you're selling big packages, large monthly retainers, for example 10K per month, I recommend you not to push for the sale too hard in this meeting. Just go through everything with your client or with your prospect, and then afterwards let them decide. You don't have to close in this meeting. If you're selling smaller packages, then it can make sense to mention all the features, all the benefits, and try to close them directly in this meeting. But I wouldn't do this for bigger deals. So let's summarize. What did we learn about the 7-hour outbound rule? The real trust comes after the first meeting or after the first contact. Follow-up is an annoyance. It's an evidence that you are a reliable person, that you can solve the problem and that you're reliable. And what we also learned, most inbound sellers, they are quitting way too early. So if you want to become a great outbound sales guy or girl, you have to focus on the follow-up. It's not about the quality of your leads, it's about the quality of your follow-up.